Okay, I hope you are still with me. This bonus section is for all of you who got hooked on Triangulator and who would like to make one step further. So stay with me and check out what I have prepared for you. Okay, so here it is. For the biggest Triangulator fans, I'm going to create a nice effect by masking our low polygon vector layer with typography. We are going to create a small cuckoo logo. I have generated a low polygon vector image with use of strong in color saturated yellow bitmap, of course with Triangulator. This file you have available in the resource section. To create the logo, we are going to use only this file. As you can see, it's called low poly background SVG. So we are going to use this image and a font. I have uploaded to the resources as well Google font Canit that I have chosen for this logo, but it's not necessarily for you. If you don't want to use this font, you can just go for any bold font that you have already installed on your computer. And as well, you don't have to use the SVG file that I'm using here. Feel free to use any of the files that you have generated in the previous section. The best choice for this technique is a font that is bold and compact, that is visually strong enough to handle the very dynamic low polygon graphics. Thinner, lighter font is not going to work here. It would be overwhelmed here by strong low polygon background. So select the font you want to use. As I said, I have chosen Google font Canit, ready to download from the resources section. In a very simple way, we are going to create a vibrant, funny logo like this one. So let's begin. Let's keep it simple. You may either download the exact resources that I have used to make my cuckoo logo, or feel completely free to use any of your own low poly vector images created by you in the first part of the course. Exactly the same goes for the font. You can use the one I have chosen, the Google font Canit, or just use any bold font that you have available already on your computer. Remember, it's all about fun and creative experimenting. You don't have to strictly follow my example. Just learn the key points of this technique that I will be presenting you and play with the rest. Use your favorite colors. You don't have to go for the yellow. You can use pink, green, blue, whatever. If you feel like using black, just use dark colors. It doesn't have to be saturated as in my case. Also, you can use the colors or draw some nice shape. You don't have to use fonts at all in this case. Feel completely free and just have fun. I have already opened here the low poly background SVG file. As you remember, the vector file exported from Triangulator is compound of multiple triangles. All of these triangles, as you can see, you can move them, they are separate objects. In order to be able to mask this low polygon vector layer with the text object, we need to group all these triangles. So I'm just going to quickly press Command Z to move my triangles back in place. Now I'm going just to drag and select all of the triangles. It's important that all of them are included. And I'm pressing Command G on my keyboard. That way I have grouped all these triangles. Now if I just press here and drag, I will drag the whole object. The triangles are not separate anymore. However, grouping is a non-destructive way of working. I can still revert it, I can still ungroup the triangles if I need to. So we have our triangles grouped. Now let's click outside of the object so it gets unselected. I'm going to move my working area a little bit towards the right to make space here for the text. So now select the text tool, either select it from the toolbar, this one, or you can just hit T on your keyboard, which is a keyboard shortcut for the text tool. Once we have the text tool selected, click anywhere here in this gray area, and I'm going to make the logo cuckoo, so I'm going to write KU, KU, you can write whatever you feel like. So I have written cuckoo. Now I'm clicking on the quick selection tool. I'm going just to press Shift key and drag this bottom right rectangle just to scale it up to see it more clearly. As you can see now, the text is written with lowercase. I want to use uppercase. I haven't pressed Shift, but I can still go to Type. So go to your menu bar, select Type, and then change case, uppercase. That way, very quickly, we have changed our text from lowercase to uppercase. As you can see now, the font doesn't really look like the initial one that I have used here. In the menu bar, we can see in the character panel that the font that we have used, it's just default font, it's called Myriad. We want to use our font, the one that I downloaded from Google, font Canit. All we need to do in order to change the Myriad font to Canit is to click here and type Canit, K-A-N-I-T. Press enter, and as you can see, the font from the default Myriad font is updated to the exactly font that we want, Canit Black. At this point, the word cuckoo is still editable. If I double click somewhere inside the word, I can still add more letters, I can add space. We can't keep it editable if we want to use it as a mask. So in order to outline the font, outline means just changing the text to shape. It won't be editable as text anymore, but it will be still vector and we can use it in our vector graphics. So in order to outline the font, just click inside in any of the signs, right click and select Create Outlines. That way, as you can see, the bounding box has changed as well. Now we have control points. If I click twice here, the text is not editable anymore. So select the text, right click on it again and select Ungroup. Now all the characters are separate objects, the same way as we had our triangles before. If we want to use this as a mask, it's not enough just to group these elements, we need to combine them into one object. We need to join all of these together, and it's very, very simple. Just open from your control panel, go to Window and open Pathfinder. Click here and we have our Pathfinder tool opened. So select all these 4 letters. You just need to click here and drag to select all 4 of them, release. And when all of them are selected, just press the first icon here. Now click on this little arrow pointing down and select Make Compound Shape. Click here. And the very last operation to make it as a one object is expand. Now it's ready. We have outlined our text and now we have joined it together. Now, as you can see, if I, for example, change color, it will be applied to all the letters, as now Illustrator treats this word as one shape. I'm going to get back to black. Okay, so both our objects are ready. Our word cuckoo is ready. Our background layer with triangles is ready. Let's start combining them into logo. Okay, we are finally ready now to start playing with our two objects. Our word cuckoo is ready and our low polygon background vector layer is ready too. So all we need to do now is to just drag this object over the low poly layer. I want to now move my working area a bit towards the left because it's not comfortable. I want to have it centered. In order to do this, I have to either select the hand tool from my toolbar or use much more effective and faster method, which is using the keyboard shortcut. It's not really shortcut, it's the biggest key in the keyboard. All you need to do is just press the space key on your keyboard. Notice when we are pressing the key, the space, how the cursor is changing into the hand cursor. So when I have the space bar pressed and I'm holding it, I can just drag my working area and adjust it in the best comfortable way for me to work further on the image, on our logo. Let's have now a closer look at our cuckoo. We might want to adjust the size a little bit in order to, I would like to make it a bit bigger. In order to make it bigger, we need to just press Shift key and drag this bottom right rectangle and drag it to adjust the size. We can drag both ways to increase the size or decrease. Just keep it flexible. More or less I want to position it because, as you remember, we will see through the shape of the letters our triangles, our background layer. So more or less I can now imagine how it's going to look like. And I want to mention that we are still working in non-destructive way. Even if I mask the layer now, in the end I will be still able to move and adjust this bottom layer inside the cuckoo shape. I will show how to do this a bit later. Now let's focus on masking our low background layer with our cuckoo word. So in order to mask this layer with this object, we need to select both of them. So just I'm going to click here, drag and select our two objects. Now right click inside the cuckoo word and select Make Clipping Mask. That's it, voila. Our effect is created. Now as you can see, we can move it and they are joined together. But as I said just a few seconds ago, if we are for some reason not entirely happy with the way the triangles are positioned inside our logo, we can still change it, we can still adjust it, we can still scale this layer inside, we can even rotate it. I will show you how to do this in a second. Okay, so let's go ahead and check how we can still adjust our polygon layer that is already clipped by our cuckoo word, that is already masked. We can still do this, it's very simple. Just select the logo, right click on it and choose Isolate Selected Clipping Mask. Click on it and that way we have isolated our polygon layer. As you can see, I can select it and let's experiment. Let's drag it to the right. As you can see, I'm dragging now only the polygon layer since we are working in the isolated mode, as you can see here. So I can now drag it, reposition. The same way as we were scaling other objects, I can still, with pressed Shift key, if I want to keep proportions, I can scale it up. For example, if I would like to have it filled only with shades of the yellow color, I could just use it that way. I can just move around, experiment. However, I prefer when it's scaled down, and I don't mind having these darker colors. It gives more depth to our logo. It creates, in my opinion, more interesting effect. So I like how the dark parts are introduced in the letters. It is really much more three-dimensional. It gives the more depth to the letters. I might maybe scale it even further down. As long as we are not going narrower than the logo, than the words, we are safe. So as I said, we can do something like this. We can as well rotate our layer. Just select this icon, and now I can experiment, I can change the position. Illustrator allows us to make really many adjustments and use our imagination. Okay, so at this point I might say I am happy with how the low polygon layer is positioned inside the logo, so I'm going to exit the isolated mode. I'm going to click on this arrow pointing to the left. I'm going to click again. That way I'm back to our initial level when I have the logo created. Now I think it will be nice to just finish with creating a background for the logo. It's very simple operation. Just select the rectangle tool from your toolbar. You can either take it from here or press M in your keyboard. This is a shortcut for the rectangle tool. So all I need to do is, maybe first I will set the color. I don't want to use the gradient. I see I have selected gradient here. I would prefer to have a black as a color for the background of our logo, since it reminds me a bit of maybe crystals, jewelry. It will pop up much nicer if it will be positioned on the dark background, like black or very dark gray, like charcoal, instead of bright, like for sure with any other strong color it would be clashing. As you can see on white, it's not really working. Let's just see how it's going to look when I create black rectangle. I have the rectangle tool selected, black color as a background, so I have pressed the Shift key, and now I'm going to drag just nice square over the shape. Don't worry, our logo is not gone, it's still underneath. All we need to do is select the selection tool. We can select it as well by pressing V. As you can see in the brackets, there are shortcuts available for most of the tools. So with the shape selected, the background, and our selection tool, just go to our menu bar, select Object, Arrange, and Send to Back. Click on this one. That way the dark square, the background, was positioned underneath our logo. We can use here the layers panel, the same as in Photoshop. However, this project is very simple. I didn't want to introduce another element. I think this is already a bit complex as for beginners, so let's leave it aside, and that way it's really the best, most effective way to just put it underneath, and we are working with all these objects on one layer. I hope you agree with me that the black color works best in this case. I'm saying this because I have maybe a bit more experience. but you can still experiment. Don't believe all I say. You need to check for yourself. So as I'm saying, I'm just selecting the background, and you can still click here in our color mixer and you can experiment. This is always very, very personal thing. This is your design, so you can keep going. You can pick whatever works for you. And I remember that I'm using my yellow SVG file, the low poly background image that was yellow and a little bit of gray, but if you went for your design, you might be using completely entirely different colors. So I don't want to lock you in the black background. Just go experiment. Click here, you can mix color, you can adjust shades. I think for me the best was just black. Another way to pick color is I just double clicked here on our color sample, on our foreground color, and that way I can select colors from here. Sampling colors from here is a little bit more convenient, as you saw before. They were updated immediately. When I'm picking color from here, I will see the final result only when I press OK. So I'm going to go for the black, press OK, and that way we have finished creating our logo. I went for the square background. You might experiment with other shapes. I really want to encourage you. I want to put very strong emphasis just on experimenting. This is very simple exercise. If you're a beginner, it might be maybe a bit complex, but remember, don't follow, don't repeat blindly. If you feel like experimenting, if you would like to use, for example, circle, just click here, use different options. Remember, it's a very important thing. There is nothing that you can break in Illustrator or any other software. Just keep experimenting. I just want to show you quickly how the logo would look like if we position it inside the circle. It will be entirely different effect, and it's always worth experimenting, checking. It takes only a few seconds and you will see when you are working for a client you might want to present more possible options. As you can see here, what happened is that like the circle that I created is automatically positioned by Illustrator on the top layer. So it's covering our logo again. I have to repeat the same process. I hope you remember what we did the previous time. I'm selecting the circle. I just have to send it to the bottom of our layer. So I have to just go here, select object, arrange and send to back. That way we have our logo visible. And I have to admit that I might prefer even the logo in a circle. It's always nice to create more versions, and another good advice is just to step back, leave it for, if you can leave it, sometimes you are working towards a deadline, but if it's possible, leave it at least overnight. Just go for a walk. Don't look at it endlessly, because after a few hours you are tired and it's not really pleasant anymore. Just leave it, save it as logo in two versions, and when you are refreshed, when you have time, just get back to it, and then I can assure you that it will look completely different. You will be able to make the decision much faster. And of course you can still keep the initial file, our source file, with two versions, and you can in the future experiment. You can swap the low polygon layer with a different layer, maybe with different image. You can change these shapes. It can be star, it can be triangle. You can really do a lot. The amount of possibilities is endless. The only limit here is your imagination. So remember, you can use this technique to experiment with your images, adjust the color and be creative. And one more thing. I would like to remind you that we are working in Illustrator, which means that the file is vector. And the really amazing thing about working with vector is that it means we can scale them to any size without losing quality. It's really amazing comparing to bitmaps. When you have bitmap image, you can print it only at up to certain size. If you start blowing it up further, it loses on the quality, it gets pixelated, and at certain point it really looks ugly. With vectors, you don't have this limitation at all. You can, for example, print this design as a postcard or even smaller size, or you can print it as a billboard. Your imagination is your only limit. When you have vector, you are not limited by size. You can do really whatever you like with your logo. Thank you so much for joining me in this short course. I hope you like the Triangulator app as much as I do and that you find it useful in your creative work. Please share with us your images. I'm really curious about your results with Triangulator. Please upload your artwork to the course discussion panel and inspire other students. And remember that if you have any questions, you can send me a message or post your question in the discussion board. I will surely help you. So that's it for now. Thanks again and enjoy!